Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the SWW show. I'm Mike. This here is not AJ. Instead, he is here with a special game to talk us about. Can you tell me your name and the game that you are currently working on?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeroen van Ravels. I am a Belgian game developer working on Trailer Trashers.
Perfect. So, maybe the easiest way to start is, what is Trailer Trashers? Because it's not a dumpster diving simulator, I assume.
No. So Trailer Trashers is basically a twin-stick party game where the goal of the game is just, eliminating your friends. So it's a 4-player couch co-op. So it's purely local multiplayer. And we've got different types of modes. Everything set in a bit of a, trailer trash vibe, let's say. Like, it's a bit dirty, it's a bit sleazy. Everything's a bit weird and over the top. And pretty graphic.
So, I gotta ask the obvious question, because you're not from America, and trailer trash is notoriously an American thing. Do you have trailer trash where you're from, or are you just Googling, Googling pop culture?
Oh no, we've got trailer trash as well. But probably a bit different, but, well, most of the team, we've grown up, of course, with American shows as well. It's pretty much the biggest form of media there is. So we've heard of trailer trash. We've seen what we think is trailer trash, of course. We've never encountered the American trailer trash, but we know what it's like here in Europe.
So I'm going to ask the obvious American questions, because there's two, when I say trailer trash and I say pop culture, there are two TV shows that are both American to me that fundamentally describe it in America. To me, they are Trailer Park Boys and My Name is Earl. Have you seen any of those two shows?
I've seen My Name is Earl.
Okay.
I love that show. It's really good.
So at least you did your background research for trailer trash. I'm proud of you. Because I think fundamentally, and correct me if I'm wrong, by looking through your game stuff, it's when you say trailer trash, you want to go to the point of it feels correct. You don't want it to be accurate.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit tongue in cheek. We were looking for a title that would kind of describe what the feel is that we're going for, and we went to a dozen titles, and one day we just came up with Trailer Trasher, and it just felt right. Like, it feels a bit out of place, and also a bit, oh, you shouldn't say that, in a way. So we felt that it kind of perfectly matched with the vibe that we had with these teens who are also out of place, using shotguns to shoot each other. It just felt like a little click once we heard it, and we're like, that's going to be the title, that's going to be the atmosphere. Let's go for it.
Wow. Okay. So let's jump maybe a little bit more into you. So my understanding is you are the lead coder of the game.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, to me, one of the things is in these types of games is obviously the weapons. Like, the weapons fundamentally to me matter the most in these twin stick things. What is like the weapon that you're really proud of, but was a pain in the butt to develop with this?
So right off the bat, we have to say, like, one of the more unique angles with this game is we have bullets that ricochet off the walls. So it's kind of like billiards, that you can line up your shot and kind of get them through the environment. You can even actually shoot the wall, and the bullets can bounce back and bite you in your own ass. So it's a bit, you have to look out with what you're doing. So the standard gun is basically the shotgun. But after a couple of play sessions, we got kind of sick with always using the same gun. And eventually we implemented an assault rifle and a sniper. And the sniper was, I can't say that it was difficult to develop, but it had like, it added this extra level of gameplay because the sniper bullets just travel way faster through enemies and bounce way more than the shotgun. So you could do even crazier shots lining them up. But if I have to say what was the most difficult one to develop, it was actually the opposite one. It was the shield. So we also have these abilities in game, like dashing and invisibility, but we also have a shield, and it basically just, like you think, it just bounces off the bullets that get fired at you, but they change color, changing it to your color, so it becomes your bullet.
Wow.
And that one was the more difficult one to implement, not because of the entire bouncing element or the entire like changing the property of now it's my bullet, but the most stupid thing was changing the color and not filling up the memory with extra data that we wouldn't use. It was just generating all this extra data that eventually was like, oh, I think we've got a memory loss here. So it's a stupid little element, but that one was kind of like, oh, that's stupid.
So maybe background then. What are you guys developing the game on? Is it like in Unity or Unreal or something more proprietary?
Yeah. So we're doing this purely in Unity.
Okay, so you actually had that much of a memory issue? I'm kind of surprised. Because like your game looks good, but I didn't expect this to be like a memory hog.
No, it was mostly because we were developing this with the Switch as a primary platform in mind. We wanted to get that 60 frames per second. That was like our main goal. And that small element proved to be like, oh shit, yeah, we're losing a little bit of data right here. And it was such a small element that we wouldn't have thought of it being that heavy, but it proved to be a bit of a stupid oversight, let's say.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have either. You said, I'm like, that's what killed it? Like, so I guess I was like,
no, it didn't kill it, yeah.
I'm like, this is like, I'm like, if every day I look at your game, I go, I expect a bunch of particles to be a problem, maybe some of the other stuff. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I'm gonna think. There was one stupid one that really got us. So one of the more, let's not say unique, but one of the more weird things that can happen is when you shoot an enemy, they burst up in multiple body parts and a head. And multiple particles, as you say. And we added the element where the head of the player would just keep in place. It would just be there. And if you shoot the head explodes, like a little bonus element. But if you play it right, you can even use it to your advantage to hide behind it because it absorbs a bullet. We didn't take into account that eventually, if you do nothing but killing enemies in a very short amount of time and not destroying those heads like normal players would, you would have hundreds of heads in an arena. And that one killed our game multiple times before we had to say, well, I think we're going to have to restrict this, which was kind of like, it hurt to do it. But in the long run, yeah, if it crashes the game, it's not worth it.
Okay. So maybe that's a good thing. So you guys then have a couple modes then for the games, right? So you have I would argue what sounds more stereotypical, like deathmatch or last one standing. I feel like the ones I want to talk about though is shotgun soccer, and I believe that'd be head soccer is one you just talked about then, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is shotgun soccer?
So shotgun soccer is a team mode that we have in the game where the teams just try to get the ball in the goal, kind of classic soccer, a Rocket League type of game. But you have a shotgun, so why don't you just shoot the ball? And shooting the ball gives it extra momentum, but you can also use your ability to dash into it and then try to get the ball into it. And it sounds very simple, but it's really my favorite mode of the game. It's you can instead of just focusing on the ball, you can also try to kill each other. So there's no one in front of the ball to try and score. So it you can have multiple strategies, and at the end, if you end up with a draw at the end of the game, we just give the players shotgun, not shotguns. We give them snipers, and they can add extra force to the ball, and then it becomes this crazy pool game trying to get us. We always end up standing on both sides of the field, trying to get the ball from one side and the other into the goal with one shot, and that is just this really fun way of trying to have these one-on-ones to just outscore each other.
So what is the limit then? Is it 2v2 or?
Yeah, it's 2v2 or 3v1 is also possible, but I highly suggest against it.
You're implying there might be a disadvantage for the player?
Oh yes.
So when you guys are developing then, you're launching with 5 modes, which I think is impressive out of the box, and then you have this decently strong variation between them. How did you kind of just balance this kind of of what felt necessary when launching this?
I think we just tried to get as much as we wanted first. We just mostly, in terms of this development, we kind of set ourselves a goal of this is the amount of time we get to work on it, and this has to be perfect. This has to have no errors. This has to have no bugs. This has to work, and it has to run very smooth on Switch. That was our primary goal to start with. And yeah, it was, we always went from mode to mode. Like we said, we started off with the free-for-all, then we went to the deathmatch, which basically is just the same thing. The soccer next. We also had a different mode, street crossing, that we had to cut because it would just end up being more level work than gameplay work. We tried to make as many arenas possible for other modes as well. And then at the last minute, like literally the last 2 weeks, we added in the party mode, which is sort of a roulette that just offers you everything the game has to give, but you don't have to go through all the menus. It's just, I want to play 7 runs of these modes. Just let me play. So you can keep playing without having to be interrupted with having to choose stages and everything. And at the end, there's one winner.
See, and that to me feels like out the box. That's the mode everyone's going to be playing. I almost feel like you just put on party mode and go, let's go.
Yeah, that's what we needed. It's like we had all these different modes, but we felt, isn't it just easier if you just, basically Netflix and just let it go.
The Netflix and just let it go. You're like, I hope
the
best. Nice. Okay, so from the moment we're talking then, the game kind of really goes through its full release then in around a week or so.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? Are you nervous? You're excited? Kind of what's your energy going into this?
I'm excited, of course, of hoping people get to play this game. That's always very exciting, but it's also very nervous, hoping people see the game. That's always the biggest concern when making games is I hope we reach the audiences we need to reach, which hasn't always worked out in the past. But that's something you can always obsess about and really worry about ahead of it. But I think in terms of the game, we're extremely proud of what we made. And of course, every developer will always say, I wish we could have done that, or I wish we could have added that, which we also have, even though kind of marked off what we wanted. But in terms of the game, we're really proud of what's there, and there's not really anything we want to change. It's what we wanted to make.
Nice. So then I'll give you one option then as we get to the end of this then. if you wanted to tell everyone anything about this game to sell it, to make them want to buy it, what is your final, like, go play this game when it comes out?
Well, I think we mainly made it because we wanted to play it. It's like the ideal game, just sitting on your couch with your friends, having a beer, having some chips, just sitting together, four players playing together, just game after game. That's, if you like that feeling of just sharing games with your friends together, then this is the perfect game for you, I think.
Perfect. So then, let's make sure I have this right. The game is Trailer Trashers. It takes place, we'll say in the middle of Kentucky. You haven't been there, it's the middle of nowhere in America.
Yeah.
That's probably a bunch of trailers there. The game comes out then on March 26, 2020.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then
yeah.
It's on Steam.
Yep.
And then you are working towards other platforms? Okay.
It's on Steam March 26 and Nintendo Switch as well on in the American region and the European region and Australia, I think. And then we've got it approved for Xbox, but we still have to finish it. And that's it so far. On Steam, it's on all the three platforms, so Windows, Mac, and Linux. Yeah, so we worked to trying to get everything out of this game that we could in the short time that we worked on it.
I want to meet the psycho who has 4 people playing off of an Apple machine to play a local co-op game. I'm just saying, I want to meet that person. I have many questions with them about their life choices.
Well, fun detail. I developed most of this on a Mac, so and I'm not an Apple fanboy. So.
I at least think you're crazy, but I understand your craziness. But I've never met the co-op person, and he's like, "This is my co-op.
Oh yeah.
Welcome my Mac." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah, this is my Mac Mini. Let's all come together and hook it up on Bluetooth. Yeah.
You know they exist, and that's gonna be the best part.
Yeah, I hope they play the game.
Perfect. Well, again, thanks for joining me for this fun discussion about the game. I look forward to playing it, and you have yourself a fine. Well, good night for you, I guess, because time's up.
Yes, thank you. It was very fun to do this. Thank you, everyone, for listening as well.
All right. Well, have a good one.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a fun interview episode of the SWW show. I'm calling these our fun still quarantine editions because we're just doing a bunch of these while obviously everyone around the world gets to be locked in their homes for a fun time. Today I have with me 2 developers for an upcoming game called SHING, and I'm putting an exclamation point because that's what they have on their Steam page, so I'm hoping that's correct. So,
yep.
Perfect. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Maybe like what you do on the game? We'll start with Michael.
So, hi guys, my name is Michael, and I'm responsible for the public relations, marketing, and biz dev in the studio.
Hi, and I'm Andrew, and I do many things, but if I had to choose, I'd say that I'm a game designer and an animator.
Okay, perfect. So, so we'll get there. So yeah, the game is SHING, and you guys are Mass Creation would be the name of the studio?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, so I'd not heard of you guys a lot before. Are you guys... Because do you guys have a lot of games that were big, maybe in the West, or are you guys more or are you guys more probably European and stuff? Because you're European-based, right?
Yeah, we're based in Poland, in Warsaw. So we're on the market for, 10 years now? 10 years? Yeah,
that's about that. About
something
10.
like that. Yeah, but it's like the company started with small mobile games. Then we did some games for PlayStation Vita and PlayStation 4. But the SHING is like the first, I don't know how to say, I don't want to say real game, but I will say full game. So PC, all the consoles, and this would be the biggest, it is the biggest project at the moment that we are working on.
The thing is that we are in a place in the market that's pretty much invisible to many players, but is perfectly viable business from a business perspective. We had some games that were moderately successful with players in like 10,000s, but for a market like Poland, where pays are not that big. So if you're operating on a global market and you sell your games in dollars, you don't need that big of a success to have a studio that keeps on going for many years. And we're one of those. So we had like some moderate successes, but we are invisible to most people as our games were not that big, but big enough for us to keep on doing what we like to do until like right now when we have a game that's like a bit bigger, a bit more, there's a bit more noise around it.
That makes a lot of sense because there definitely are the like hundreds or thousands of studios. I feel like in your place of like, we have hits or we have games. They're just not the biggest thing in the world, but there's definitely enough of them to sustain a small, medium-sized team for years at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And games have surprisingly long shelf life. So especially in the digital market, we mostly do digital games. Actually, I think we exclusively do digital games. And they just sell for years and years.
If I'm wrong, then the overhead then at that point, once you make your profit back, is free revenue that you're like, okay, now this tail at least keeps us going while we build the next thing.
Yes, exactly. Some of the bigger mobile titles we had are still earning pretty good. Not enough to like make a living off, but if you have enough of them and your library grows with time, you just can keep studio going on this steady trickle of revenue alone. And just focus on the next project and not worry about like investors and stuff.
Perfect. So now we kind of got that idea of where you guys are at and where are. It's now time to talk about. And I just keep emphasizing it because there's an exclamation point. So it's SHING. Am I supposed to do that exclamation point? Because that's kind of what everything says.
Yes, and you should strike like a samurai pose.
Andrew will explain this because he's the guy who come up with the idea, basically.
The thing is, we were trying to find a suitable name for like half a year. And at some point we're just looking for cool sounds, and SHING is basically just the sound a sword makes when it leaves the scabbard.
Perfect. Do you mind maybe explaining for everyone what is maybe your elevator pitch for this game?
So like Michael or...
Generally you feel more comfortable.
I just want to keep order. So.
I can use the. So I think the best line to sell the game would be the one that one of the websites use. So we've got a game about ninjas, boobs, and demons. So I think that's the best the best words to use to say about our game. But I think the best pitch would be from the guy who like come up with most of the ideas in the game. So Andrew, you can do it.
All right, if you, my heart is bleeding if you just put it like that. Okay, so pretty much what we tried to do was to make an old school beat 'em up. So like an old game with a young heart. So an old school arcade beat 'em up with modern mechanics and modern sensibilities on how we approach players and how we approach the game. So we wanted to make a game that's... Let me just step up a bit. How long do you want me to answer that question? Because
I'm gonna again, it's the obnoxious teacher answer, I guess, but it's the like, if I said, how about this? If what is the like? If I try to explain to people really quickly, what is your game? So you said it's a modern old school beat 'em up.
No. Actually, I think that the elevator pitch is it's what you would get if you mixed like old school beat 'em ups with character action games like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, and added on top of that a control scheme that relies on using the right analog sticks to input attacks.
So I think the way I'd want to start that then is, so when you say character action game, you said it's like Devil May Cry is an example of a character action game. to you then in the game, does every character, so like part of your selling point of this game is it's a co-op game.
Yep.
Does every
Yes.
character control the same then, or is there some level of selection in that?
The thing is, the character control pretty similarly, but it's because of two reasons. One, we did not actually three reasons, I guess. One, you are encouraged and maybe even at some point forced to use all of them, even if you play solo, because at all points in the game you have a full party of 4, and if one of the character dies, you choose another one. So we wanted it to be really, how to say it. We did not want to have like a drastically different movesets, so we don't feel confused every time you switch. The second thing is we wanted to avoid situations when you play with forever friends and one of you is stuck with a character he or she doesn't like, because usually it is like that. So we didn't want to make the characters so different. And the third thing is a lot of the fun from the game is because of how tactile it feels to control your character with an analog stick. Like we try to translate every flick of the analog stick into one slash of a sword in the game, or maybe a circle with a stick into one spin attack. So there is actually pretty low window of how much you can change, how fast the attacks goes, or how many swings there are in a combo before there is a very noticeable disconnect between what you're doing with your analog stick and what your character is doing.
So a lot of it came down to the idea of I guess part of it too is that you don't have the same fight. I guess of no, I want to be this guy because I want to be this guy. It's more of the like you want to be a person because you like the look of them versus like the
I think you can say that. And the second thing is that, like Andrew said, you can switch characters like on the go, so you can also sometimes treat them like lives. And the next thing is that we don't want the players to have like their favorites, and also like the entry level in this like particular way we are handling characters is that it doesn't matter which one you pick, you can like start to play on the go. You don't have to learn the movesets. You don't have to figure out combos or, I don't know, special moves, that kind of stuff. You just pick the characters and you can start to play.
The thing is, it's kind of hard to talk about the game because of how we have in addition to the analog control system, we have something we call a free flow combo builder. So you can mix and match your different moves without having a specific set of inputs you need to do to make a combo. So you don't have like quick attack, then heavy, and quick. And this is a specific combo. And if you do like quick attacks, it just stops. You can mix and match moves however you want. And so because of that, it's hard to make like specific combos for specific characters because it goes into in opposition, right? So having like a free flow combo creation and specific combos for specific characters.
Okay, so I could see where that challenge obviously can come in immensely otherwise. So one of the things that I feel while we're on this combat thing is you guys define this game as beat 'em up 2.0. What, and maybe this could be either you, depending if you feel is more suited for this answer, what to you defines beat 'em up 1.0, and then what, like, to you then, why are you 2.0?
Wow, I would have to insult like games now.
I don't know if insult. Like, what do you think? Like, they got really right in their foundation, and that you're like, oh, here's a thing we found a way to either make it hair better or like evolve over time. Maybe the better way to say it then.
You know, it's like I think we want to. We said like when we are talking to each other in the office, it's like we want to bring the beat 'em ups again. Maybe not to the spotlight, but to give them a little bit more attention. So we can't just do another like generic beat 'em up, let's call it like that. So we need to add something which will be interesting to the players or will attract them to the game. So I think this 2.0, like in general, would be getting this like good old beat 'em up that we know from the arcade saloons, and make them more accessible to the players today, because not all of them played those games. If they are like 20 or like 15, 17, 20 years old, they might not even play that kind of games. Of course, like older players will know that kind of games, like, I don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Golden Axe or Street of Rage, that kind of stuff. So I think they're like this 2.0. I would say it's like an upgrade to make those games more fun to the modern players.
Okay. I have like a super specific answer to that because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. So what we did like about the beat 'em ups 1.0, oh my god, I need to just focus, was they were incredibly incredibly accessible. That's why till now I think about beat 'em ups as about the best party games I can bring out when my friends are over, because I just show them this button is kick, this button is punch, this is jump, and let's go to the right and kick everything on standing in our way. So this was something we wanted to keep. We wanted to make a game that's like super accessible. And we pretty much did that, because you just say to your friends, you use right analog stick to attack, this is jump, this is dodge, this is block. Another thing is those games are really fun to play with your friends. They're perfect co-op games, because they're very, it's not only simple, but they're like this ultimate power fantasy. Like you're playing an action game that's like, this is like popcorn food when it comes to games. Not really challenging. You don't have to like think about your stats or listen to some convoluted stories. Just a perfect snack food when there are friends around. And this is, again, something we wanted to keep. But their core gameplay of beat 'em ups 1.0 was really limited, because what the combat basically boiled down to you shimming over to your enemies, because you had really, really short attack range, and they attacked really fast. So you just shim it to them slowly or maybe sometimes faster, and try to hit them before they hit you back. And this is really simple. And if you hit them, usually they're stun locked until you finish your combos and they're not back. So we wanted players to have way more options on how they approach every fight, every punch, every encounter with every single enemy. So we added stuff that people asked about for years, like we added blocks, we added dodges, we added parries, we added way more moves you can perform. We added aerial attacks, so you can think whenever you want to fight on the ground or take your enemies into the air. And then when you expand the moveset of your players, the enemies have to evolve as well, and so because they have to be able to keep up. If they were also just shimming over to you and making those really short, fast punches, it wouldn't work. You would blow them away. So that's why we made enemies that are also a bit smarter. They have more moves. They can block you. They can dodge. They can shoot you off the air if you spend too much time there. And because of that, instead of making a game where you interact with all the environment with only a single action, meaning punch, you have a bunch of options and the environment reacts to what you are doing.
The things that I think that you hit that I think is very important in Beat 'em Up 1.0 was the accessibility part of like I can pick it up, explain it in front in 2 seconds, and you run.
Yeah.
What's interesting about me is, so one of the things I've noticed with 2.0 is you've noticed a lack of probably complexity or things you could do in 1.0.
Yes.
How do you keep that accessibility thin if they have that many things, and in some scenarios they might have to use a lot of those skills?
Yeah, so this is basically how the analog control stick scheme came into life, because there have been some attempts at making more complex beat 'em ups, and they basically boil down into making long combo lists or complicated inputs like Hadokens and Shoryukens and stuff like that. But this instantly ups the learning curve. It makes it way harder to be good at the game. So we came up with the analog control system, which gives you like maybe 10 different moves at any point, because you can just, if you tell your friend that to make a spin combo, you just make a circle movement with your analog stick, they instantly know how to do it. And we made it really sure that it's easy to remember which movement of the stick does what. So if you want to uppercut an enemy, you just hold up on the stick. It's really intuitive. You remember it just like that. The first time you do it is the moment you remember how to do it. And well, basically, this is what it boils down to, because we've seen on the public events numerous times that after like 2 minutes of gameplay, people do crazy combos, and they know exactly what to do. There are really few missed inputs or people being surprised of what's happening when they're just mashing the analog stick. So basically that. We made a more complex moveset and then came up with a very intuitive way to access this moveset.
Okay, and I'm very curious then to see maybe long term if because I think fighting games are a prime example. I think of something that does it actually wrong, and I think you might have solved that problem. It seemed like you've thought about to try to solve that problem, because to me fighting games are this thing of they layered 10 layers of complexity, but they didn't answer the fundamental problem of picking it up.
I don't know how closely you are following the fighting game scene, because some fighting games actually tried to solve that. And for example, the new Soul Calibur games have really simple control schemes. Usually it's just you hold one direction and press or hold a button. Or Super Smash Bros. They also have like super simple control schemes. But there is a lot of pushback from the fighting scene, because they want this execution complexity to be there, because this is what differentiates the master from the beginner. So nowadays we've seen a bit of a split in how you design fighting games.
And I agree. I think too, because I think Smash Brothers is, I argued, the exception to that rule, because Smash Brothers, I think anyone can pick up Smash Brothers and at least play it within a couple minutes. I don't know if I could agree about the same of like Street Fighter either.
No, Street Fighter has a horribly high execution floor. Yeah, I can't play that game. I love watching it, but it's super hard to execute, because this game did not evolve for the last 20 years, and they do it on purpose.
I think that you guys, at least, I'm really excited that you've at least thought about the problem and at least are trying to think of a way to solve that issue, because I think fundamentally the issue, I at least think in early beat-em-ups, was the issue of, okay, after 5 minutes I've seen the majority of this game, because all the mechanics are the same, because there's only so much complexity.
This is also why we put so much, we do care a lot about enemy variety, because this is one of the ways the game can increase in complexity without overloading players with options. The different enemies have different ways to fight, and they drop different power-ups that change your gameplay a bit, so you can give some complexity and then take it away, so you don't have to think about too many things at once.
I think that's a good point then to talk about. We keep talking about this combat and all of that tied to it. So I'm curious about the things you are fighting in this game. From the material that's out there, you guys have a wide swath of enemies, we'll call it, to choose from. Maybe can we focus on one or two that you guys are really proud of, or something that shows your system off really well, and talk about what those enemies are and how you face them?
All right, so I have some favorites. It's like asking a mother to choose her favorite child.
Okay, if this is game development, choose the child that functions the best, because nothing works as we want it to in game development.
So, for example, at the beginning of the game, fighting in the air is a really powerful tool, because most simple enemies just stick to the ground, so you can uppercut an enemy, follow it into the air, and just keep on hitting them in the air, being safe. And so at some point, we know that this is your favorite strategy, so we introduce enemies throwing grenades. So as soon as they see that you're in the air, they just throw a bomb into the air that explodes after a second or so, and bring you down. So you have to constantly be aware wherever they are on the screen, and if they did throw the grenade, and you need to adapt to what's on the screen. And as soon as you kill them, they drop those grenades. So you can pick them up, and at that point, you leave bombs when you dodge. And this once again changes how you approach the enemies, because those bombs are actually energy explosions, and they break certain shields that enemies use. So the enemy, as soon as this grenade-throwing enemy shows on the screen, you know that you should avoid fighting in the air. You know that he's going to throw grenades at you from the distance. So you need to either be aware that the thing right in front of you is not the only thing you have to care about. And also, you know that as soon as you kill it, you might have a really powerful tool to take care of another enemy that might give you trouble. So this is like this, a bit of a, maybe a puzzle is too strong a word, but if you play a game for a bit and you know what to expect of enemies, you just take a look at what's on the screen and you decide in which order you want to defeat them, because they cover their weaknesses, and they also leave tools to exploit different enemies' weaknesses.
But this also but this also, like, the grenade guy also shows that you need to pay attention, like Andrew said, to tactics. So the enemies got their own tactics, because like the enemy with the grenade can throw you off when you're juggling, can like swoosh back and leave the grenades when you try to approach him quickly. So this is like another defensive strategy for him. So, like Andrew said, you need to pay attention and you need to be tactical in the combat when you have multiply and enemies on the stage or on the screen.
Okay, so can I choose like 3 enemies instead of 2, because 2 of them are kind of connected?
Sure, they're too connected. Let's go down that rabbit hole then. I'm curious how enemies are connected.
So the first enemy that's a bit of an upgrade of the most basic mook that you just hit all over again is a shielded mook, let's call it, who has a shield on his body that's covering either his head, his torso, or his legs. So you need to hit exposed parts, otherwise your attacks just bounce off the shield and you do nothing, and he can just punch you through your attacks. But if you hit the exposed part enough times, like 2 or 3 times, he changes which part is shielded. So you need to constantly change which part you are attacking, and you can do that because it's really easy to choose which flick you are, like if you're flicking diagonally up or diagonally down. So you need to change which attacks you're using depending on how he's shielding. And then after so you play some more, we have a bit of an advanced version of this enemy that I personally love very much, who is he's a Tengu Swordmaster, and if you are using the same attacks too many times in a row, he will parry your attacks and just whoop you with a riposte. So you need to constantly change how you're fighting so he can't keep up, and you're having like this little duel. If you're just mashing forward, mashing the most basic combo, he will just whoop your ass. You need to keep him guessing what you're going to do. It sounds more complicated than it really is, but it just looks really cool, and I love him because he's blocking your attacks and parrying and jumping around, and and he also has some mechanics that really discourage people from fighting him 2-on-1. So usually if 2 players are fighting, one of them is taking care of the lesser mooks, and one of them is having this epic duel somewhere else on the screen.
Nice. Okay, perfect. So I think that gives a nice variety of understanding. Maybe I'm very, for the record, very curious as this game comes out to see for sure if you guys definitely meet your goal of, as I said, the accessibility of this game while meeting its complexity. Because I go back to, if you can do that, I think that's a fundamental good change in direction for this genre, and I think very few games have been able to succeed at that. So
I mean, we tried to test it on the last PAX of Boston with enough tutorials and like only a small slice of the game. Basically, there was only, I think, one mechanics that we need to explain to like basically random people who came to play, and they were able to catch, I think, 90% of mechanics by their own. And when we saw how much fun it was for them, so I think we already there and we have it. Of course, it's different when you're sitting at home by your own, more concentrated, things like that. And there's no one next to you who can like guide you. But I think we have it at the moment, more or less.
Yeah, we had some pretty surprising moments at the last few public events when some little kids who really shouldn't be playing our game were really,
We shouldn't talk about it.
Oh, all right. Then they did absolutely nothing and just walk next to our booth. The game is really easy to pick up, and so far we're really, really anxious about it. At some point, we were really thinking about just leaving the analog stick controls, just going back into just mashing face buttons. But so far, a couple of hundreds of people saw it, and no one said that they would prefer just button mashing. So yeah, I guess it's testing well so far.
And again, I think that's a very impressive feat, and I congratulate you guys for that. I congratulate you guys for a demo that works. I think that's congratulations enough for any game demo that actually works. And I congratulate you for it seems like you guys, at least in the playtesting and pools you have seen, you have seemed to have achieved your goals, which I think again is something that is congratulatory and impressive at its own feat.
Right now we're pretty much finishing the game. We're in the production stage, so we're just pumping out levels and enemies and cutscenes and so on. So yeah, we're on the right track to finishing it pretty soon.
Perfect. So I think that's going to lead us to the end of this interview. So I'm curious. So right now you guys are still saying, is it still still the goal is Q, I believe 3 of this year?
Yes, it is.
And it's where can we find the game when it comes out? All of that fun stuff. I assume that's where you're gonna hop in, Michael.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So Steam and probably GOG for PC computers, PlayStation Store, Xbox, and Switch. You can guys find everything like on our website and on our social media. You can join our Discord if you still want to become like one of the beta testers, because we have like beta tests which are ongoing and will be going still for some time. So, but this is only for the PC version at the moment. So join our Discord, fill like super simple form, and we can give you guys the access to check what we just talk about. So it's not a problem. I think there will be also beta tests for PS4. But this is something that we still working on, and we still need some time for that.
Perfect. And the Discord, I assume we could find would it be on masscreation.com?
Mass Creation, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can also find it on our Steam and on our social media, so it's almost everywhere.
Perfect. Sounds good. So, guys, thank you for joining me for this fun talk about this game. I'm excited to see what ends up. And best of luck for you guys finishing during this madness in the world, we'll call it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and I hope people will like it.
It's always this tiny little spark of hope in our hearts. We hope that people will like it.
Perfect. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Lovely talking to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special, I'm going to say, Corona edition of the SWW show, because that's when we're recording it. I'm Mike. This here with me is not AJ, though. Could you tell me who you are and what the game you're working on is?
Yeah, so I'm Rory. I work at a company called Pocket Sized Hands in Scotland in the United Kingdom, and just probably about a month ago, we released a game on the App Store called Dish Life, and we've been working on it over the past year or so with the University of Cambridge. And basically, Dish Life is a game about stem cell science. It's kind of like an educational game, but also just kind of like a look into the world of stem cell science and kind of showing different aspects of it, from caring for cells in like stem cell dishes to then actually like wider kind of social issues that kind of stem cell scientists come across in their career. And so they reached out to us just at the end of 2018, and we've been working with them since, and the game is finally out now. So yeah.
So I've got to ask, do you have a background with any of this stuff, or is it you were just learning on the fly as you guys kept going?
Yeah, so we're basically a work for hire company, and so we get loads of people reaching out from us from loads of different industries, and so games development is what we kind of specialize in, and so we get all these different projects like stem cell science, and we've worked with like architecture firms in the past as well. So there's like loads of variety in the work that we do, and we always tend to learn bits and pieces as we go through projects, and it's always usually quite interesting. But yeah, I would say this one was more of the one of the more interesting ones that we've done in the past. There's lots of different kind of challenges that we came across whilst developing it to try and convey like this subject, which is obviously quite a complex one, in a way that's kind of entertaining for people to play along with.
Kind of where I wanted to start the questions on that, really, because so I was playing through it a bit because you guys were nice enough to provide me with the code to go through the game a bit, and one of the things that stuck out to me is the nature of like making sure people understood what's happening. So like the continuation of like, oh, here is these little like tiny little thing, and here are like the 3 steps, and like making sure those 3 steps got ingrained in the brain, or like making sure that like if I'd done something before, you had to like remind me how to do it again, because like there's no all of this is probably new for everyone who's played it. You can't rely off like the general constraints of like, oh, I know how to play a first-person shooter. This is, do you know how to microbiology? And most people go, no.
Yeah, well, at its core, the game is just kind of like a management game, so you've got to make sure your staff are all happy, and you got to make sure your cells are happy, because if you don't do that, then you can't like progress in the game, pretty much. And it was a really kind of quite an interesting challenge working, because the people that we were working on the game with from the University of Cambridge, they're all like kind of academics, and so it was I would say probably the most challenging part of developing the game was trying to kind of find the right balance between kind of educational, putting across like what they wanted to show in the game and what they wanted to kind of convey to people, but then also kind of having the game have fun gameplay elements that you can kind of piggyback off of to put in some of those educational parts.
So I'm curious then on the level of like freedom you guys got then, because I assume they walking to you guys, they had some level of a vision they wanted to do this, and so how much of it was like they're like, here we want to teach the player X, and then you're in charge of it getting them there, or do they have ideas for like these mini games ahead of time?
Yeah, so actually, when they reached out to us initially, they wanted to make an augmented reality game, and kind of our background as a company was working on like kind of augmented reality and virtual reality software and games, and so we were kind of quite keen to go along with that, and just as we kind of talked to them a bit more and more, we kind of talked about then having a bigger game, which was did have like some augmented reality elements, but then that's, as you can see in the final game, just not there at all, because we just kind of steered away from it. It didn't really fit into the vision of what the game was meant to be. But basically, kind of when we started out, there was this idea that you would just have your cells there and you'd manage them, and then that was really all we kind of were going to shoot for. And then kind of further down the line, they kind of came to us and said we wanted to do something a bit more with it, and so. Kind of across the year, the idea of like what we had in mind for actually making this game has changed massively over like the year that we've been developing it for, and it's very much just like a backwards and forwards chat, because they can kind of see the value in having kind of fun gameplay as well as educational elements in it as well, and I think it's kind of just been every like few weeks we'd have a catch up call and we'd talk about kind of the latest changes we'd been making to the game and whether they see that fitting in well with how they envision the game coming out in the end. And we'd kind of offer advice, because obviously we're as game developers, we kind of have a better understanding of what works well in that sense, but they have a better understanding of kind of what works well for their kind of, I don't know, how they want to convey the game to people and what they want to convey, like themselves science. And so it's it was definitely a lot of like back and forth to get to where it is, but it was interesting.
Yeah, that has to be. So I've done in my work kind of like some level of like equivalency of like either working with private institutions at university or vice versa. But I've never this long term, and especially never on a subject quite like this where relatively I assume you guys understand very little. The other thing I think sticks out to me though immediately is the very papery art style is the best way to call it. I'm curious, why do you guys think like that papercraft look was the right look for what you're trying to portray?
So again, like initially we just thought like we gave our artists just kind of free reign over what do you think would look really cool in this game? What would what kind of, it's a mobile game. It's on mobile phones as well, so it's got to be kind of fairly limited in terms of what we can push on them. But then also kind of what would you do to make it look interesting? And one of our artists came back. I can't remember who it was, and showed us this kind of. It was almost like an origami design where we had one of the initial concepts was a room in the lab, and then it all kind of folded out like origami. And unfortunately, that never showed through in the real game. But it was like all these different, like the tables unfolded and the walls unfolded and things like that, and it just looked really cool. And we all like really liked it. But then we never end up going much further with that down the line, just because of complexity and how much time we had to like kind of put into things like that. But yeah, no, it kind of stemmed from just one idea that one of the artists had, and I think it looks really cool, and we just kind of went with it. And yeah, that's just kind of where it came from. There's no rhyme or reason or anything like that. It's just one of the artists was like, I like this style, and we were like, yeah, we really like it too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious because, again, you guys have this very interesting problem of making it so people who kind of understand games understand the game, but inherently the goal is not fun in the traditional sense. So I'm always curious, like those decisions kind of lead to then unique decisions, whether it's in the art style or the UI or how you're displaying information. So I'm curious, because when I was going to the game, one of the things that stuck to me was actually two things. One of them was the way you defined like cells and growing them in a mini game, like in the Lidwell idea of like them being like little like puffle like things.
Yeah.
And the other thing stuck to me was the way you're actually having the player evolve from like a student to a professor to a like this whole like you actually had this line of like, oh, you actually are growing your career and stuff.
So it's just it was one of the parts that they wanted to show was kind of there's like a kind of story showing like the evolution of someone that goes into stem cell science. And so, yeah, you start out as like an undergraduate student, and you're kind of learning bits and pieces about how the lab works, and kind of as you progress through the subject that's in the story in the background kind of changes to based on what kind of career stage you're at, and it's just about kind of showing the whole spectrum and kind of just showing like showing that it's not all just about looking after the cells. There's a lot more stuff kind of happening in the background as you're kind of doing this thing that is actually the core of the stem cell lab, which is looking after the cells. There's lots more things involved in it than just that.
So one of the other things is, so this game is both on, you said mobile devices and also like on the PC through like the Steam store. Did you guys have any interface issues kind of that related to while trying to make this? We talk about like the very simple thing that's easy to digest.
Interface issues? You mean like UI or? Yeah,
like UI, even like usability. Because I think we both agree that like the rules for a game or a device on the PC are different than the rules on like iOS or Android natively of like how I'd have people interact.
Yeah, I mean, all the interactions in the game are fairly simple, so it's just like touching on buttons and like things will kind of appear. The biggest pain for me was the day that I realized that we didn't have any kind of support for iPhone X devices or Notch devices, and so just having to get to work on that was a bit of a pain. But other than that, it's the kind of the gameplay of the game kind of transfers okay-ish between mobiles and PC, I think, just because the gameplay is purely just tapping on things, so tapping can translate fairly easily to just mouse clicks, and that's how we were playing the game for a lot of development whilst we were playing it on the PC before we pushed it to mobiles. And so, I mean, there could have been a lot more things we could have done in terms of accessibility. Like, I guess, like, we spoke to some people about kind of providing different translations for the game, and as well as that, kind of doing like accessibility features such as like subtitles, like so people are reading aloud through. Because we spoke to a few people that like kind of play games, but they were kind of couldn't read the text on the screen. So just things like that. But it's like we were developing it as like a work for hire, so there isn't budget for having like all these different options whilst we were making the game.
Okay. Actually, I want to follow up on that. So you said notch phones are harder to like with the interactions on them.
It's not really harder, but it's like it's just a consideration that we hadn't really thought about until like a few months into development, and we'd done all this work and then really had to kind of take a step back and then redo it again. So that was like probably the only painful thing that I can think of that happened in the development, really.
Interesting. Okay. So as we get to the tail end of this, I've got to ask the question, because you probably learned a little ton making this game. What is like the thing that like you learned or stuck out with you from like either the science or that end that you're like, I never knew that, or something you found really interesting that you learned?
I would say like this the subject as a whole, kind of the different applications of actually what they do in these labs, like, because it's all about, I mean, growing cells, and then like the process of differentiation, which is turning like stem cells, which is kind of I guess like the ultimate cell in terms of like that it can be turned into any cell in the body. So you can have neuron cells and like liver cells, and the fact that they can like grow, or they're starting to be able to kind of grow like bits and pieces of organs like in labs, just in like dishes. And I think that's just pretty amazing. And then hopefully one day they can use these to actually help fix people that have issues with I guess like their liver or something like that. They can replace it with one that's grown in a lab. I think that's just wild.
Nice. Yeah, I've always found that interesting too, the act of like as we get farther, and a lot of science of like growing different pieces of the body and stuff, and it's like how long until we're like we don't need transplants. We'll just give me a week. Like, I'm very curious to that
exactly.
point.
Let me just grow you a liver, sir.
Nice. Okay, so let's make sure I got the right. The game is Dish Life the game. It is on Steam, iOS, Android. Am I missing anything else?
Steam, Android, iOS, and that's it. There's an update coming out for it. Should be next week. We're just kind of working on some final changes before we push it out. And yeah.
Nice, perfect. And then anything else is dishlife.org. Again, thanks for your time, giving me your time during this fun, chaotic world we all live in right now.
It's alright, we're all trapped in our houses anyway, so.
Perfect, okay. Well, have a good one, and thanks again. This podcast was a product of the SWW Show. You can find more at the SWWshow.com, or facebook.com/the SWW store, or twitter.com/SWW. You can find out more about Mike at Mikey_Maroney on Twitter, and more about AJ at Losivor on Twitter. Remember, new episodes come out twice a month, one focusing on the new entertainment news, and one focusing on movie club, so new and an old movie. You can find out more again at the SWWshow.com. And you can find the show on podcast services around the globe.